See, if you want to design user interface in Pega, and if you want to create any screen, definitely the screen should have controls like text inputs, drop downs, radio buttons, and maybe one or more controls as per your business need. Why you create UI? Usually we create user interface to accept the data from the customers. Suppose if you go to ATM, it is going to display some user interface and it accepts user inputs from the customer. User will provide the input to the farm. Data what you are providing to the in the farm will be held by controls. So now if you look at the diagram, here, so this is the UI form in this diagram. The data whatever that you are going to input to the system will be held by HTML controls in the user interface. So now after you register on Facebook, next time when you try to log in with the registration information what you have provided, the system is going to allow you to get into Facebook. So how come it is recognizing you? That is, already the data you have submitted during the registration process has been stored. So how the business applications are going to store the data? Business applications are going to store the data into the database in the form of tables. Okay, I will show you just a table how it looks like, but you don't need to much bother about tables as of now. So in the form of tables, now your data whatever you are supplying in the Facebook registration form is going to get stored into a table, where table will have columns and it will have rows. So it may have n number of rows. It may have n number of rows. Suppose 100 users have registered on Facebook. Just imagine this is the table which is storing the registration data in the backend database. So then if 100 users registers, then 100 records will be there. 100 rows will get inserted. One row is equal to one user. So one of the column here, you will have the phone number being stored. When you try to log into Facebook next time, it will verify already this phone number is there in the database and this password is matching with the password what we have. Suppose password is not matching, then it will show a message saying that password not matching, it is not recognized. User ID itself is not there, then it will display a message user ID is not recognized. Okay, so the data what you are supplying in the form, it is getting stored into a database. So the database is the permanent storage location. Database is what? Permanent storage location. Suppose if you try to copy a file into your pen drive or a hard disk, that is permanent. It will be there forever as long as the hard disk device is there, as long as you do not delete it. Okay, like that. So the applications data in the web application, desktop application world, data will get stored into a database in the tables format, into a database in the tables format. So where the data will be stored into columns and rows. Row is data, column is just a first name, last name, age, gender, like that. 100 members registers, 100 members data will be there in the table. There will be 100 rows, each row is equal to one member. Everyone clear? Make sense? And now how the data is going to flow from user interface to backend. We are not going to discuss something like the business logic, how to write and all, but just a high level, let me tell you. So the data what you have entered or input through the UI is there with the HTML forms. HTML form has controls. Each control is holding some attribute value. First name control, first name value. Last name control, last name value. Age, gender, state, city, zip code, phone number, email ID, password, all these are being held by the respective controls. So now the data is going to flow from UI to the next layer. What is the next layer? Business logic. So every web application or desktop application typically have three layers using any technologies: user interface layer, business logic layer, and database layer. So the UI data what you have submitted will flow into, get into business logic. So from UI, controls are holding. When the data is going to flow into business logic, who will hold the data? Someone should be there, right? Just imagine three persons are standing. One person is equal to UI, second person is equal to business logic, third person is equal to database. So if you are going to hand over anything, let's say the first person you are going to hand over a mobile cell phone. So if it has to be stored, it has to go from person 1 to person 2, person 2 to person 3. When you give it to person 1, that is UI, HTML controls his hand, it is going to hold it. And next level he has to pass on. There should be someone to receive at the next level, right? So at the business logic level, there should be someone to receive this particular data and hold it in the business logic intermediate level. That is called as, in the general language, any programming language, it is called as variable. It is called as variable. Suppose if I, in the UI form, if I have first name, last name, and phone number, email ID, gender, okay, 5 total 5 controls are there. Then 5 controls data to hold in the business logic, we need 5 variables. Means one control, one variable gets associated. Control 1 give it to variable 1, control 2 will give it to variable 2, control 3 will give it to variable 3, control 4, control 5, accordingly it is going to give to variable 4 and 5. So each control data has to be handed over to one variable. So in the business logic, a variable is an entity, attribute, you can say, attribute which holds a value, See, look at here, the UI control. This control, does it have a name for the control? What is the name of this control? First name. What is the name of this control? Surname. Value, whatever I enter the value. This is value. Name of the control is what you see as a label. Okay. So similarly, a control will have a name. It holds a value at the HTML form level. Similarly, business logic, a variable holds a value. A variable is going to have a name. Variable is going to have a name. Now, from one level, on click of a button, I mean like here, you click on sign up, the next level data will move. That is business logic. Variables are going to hold the data. Now variables are holding the data. Each variable will have some name, meaning full name. But also you should define the type of the data. Type means a variable when you create, it should be holding like integer value or decimal value or float, I mean like decimal, or date value or date plus time value. So which type of value that it has to hold also should be defined. These are some important parameters here. Okay, now variable holds a value. So data from UI has flown into business logic. At the business logic, there is someone to receive, that is called variables. So UI controls have handed over the data to variables. Now variables, whatever the data that is there with the variables, should be stored into tables. See, this is the table. So in order to interact with any database table, whether it is MySQL or whether it is Oracle or whether it is SQL Server, any database, there is a programming language for interacting, that is called as structured query language, which is referred as SQL. What do you call it? SQL, structured query language. And here you need to write the queries like this. As of now, when you are learning Pega, you don't need to bother about writing queries. It will automatically get saved. Just for your information on the high level, I am just explaining. So queries, you need to hand over the data from the business logic into a query. So you have to add all the data into a query. So first level, you are giving the information to UI HTML form. HTML form controls are going to hold the data. This controls data will be handed over to business logic variables, and taking from the business logic, you need to transform the data into a format of structured query language. The query, when it hits the database, appropriate action will be done. Types of queries, I mean like types of commands and all, I'll tell you later, different commands. So the next level, data is going to get stored into database. In order to store the data into database, the business logic variables collected information will be kept into a query format. When query hits the table, appropriately data is going to get stored if it is a storage action. Okay, everyone clear? So this is how data is going to flow from UI to business logic, and from business logic it will be placed into queries. Queries, when it hits the database, data will get stored into the database tables. This is just a basic idea that one should have. So many of you who are already working in IT industry or any technology, whether it is development or support, you might be already aware of these things. Okay, but those who are not aware of this type of things, try to learn from us as a beginner. So first we need to design user interface. In the user interface, we should have controls, and at runtime, these controls will hold the information that you input, and that information will be handed over to next level into the business logic to the variables, and variables are going to place this data into SQL queries, and the queries will hand over the data to the database by hitting the database. The database will take the data and keep it in the queries if it is a save query. Okay, understand? That's what a Facebook registration process is going to all about happen. Okay, now data stored. Okay, so now here we need to deal with three layers: UI, business logic, and table backend. Okay, if you are a developer, let's say you are a Java developer, you should be aware of how to create UI. You should be aware of HTML coding, CSS, maybe any other UI codings, and you should be aware of Java. Maybe it is at a core Java level or advanced Java level. There is nothing like core and advanced, only Java is there. Okay, core advanced is our convenience. Okay, you need to know about Java, and the next thing is you should be writing the queries by yourself, and you should know about SQL programming language. But now the advantage while you are working with Pega is you will be dealing with all of these three, and you don't need to write HTML or any related coding in Pega to design user interface. You don't need to bother about implementing the business logic at all, and you need need not to bother about writing the SQL queries, and even need not to bother about how to write the SQL queries, and you don't need to bother about creating tables also, usually the transaction related and all, because PRPC will automatically do everything. Only the creation of UI you have to focus on as of now. So in order to create the user interface, how to start and where to start. So I told you, right, if you are writing UI, if you're creating UI, the data what you have entered in the UI should be handed over to the variables in the business logic. So you should have variables created. Okay, but so suppose in the UI I have 5 controls: first name, last name, age, gender, and email ID. Okay, so these 5 controls data should be given to 5 different variables. So which control data to be given to which variable? How the system knows? I have 5 controls, 5 variables. Control 1 to 4th variable, control 2 to first variable. How does it knows which control data to be handed over to which variable? Look at here. While you are designing user interface, don't bother about navigations at all. I will be giving the navigations once again while we are dealing with the subject. I mean like practicals and all. See, first name is the control. You have designed UI. Now, if you go to if you double click on this control, you see here, this control is mapped to, here you can see property. What is the property name? Also same, first name. So there is a link between a HTML control and a variable. Everyone clear? Already these two are linked. So control 1 is mapped to property 1, variable 1. Control 2 is mapped to variable 2. Means already both are linked. Control 1, if you enter data, that will be handed over to variable 1. Control 2, if you input the data, that will be handed over to variable 2. Already this linking has to be done. Now, in order to deal with UI creation in Pega, you need to create a rule called section. What do you need to create? Section. Just look at here. We are going to start looking at the section now, just high level. Okay. So whenever you create a section, anytime when you create a section, and you should have a give name to the UI, some name. It can be anything. Create and open. Don't bother about these navigations. I will tell you clearly how to do it. Okay. And now you have to go ahead and add the controls into UI. See here, whenever you are creating a section, by default, you will get a layout in the section by name dynamic layout. What is the meaning of dynamic? I'll tell you later. You will get an empty layout. So the overall user interface is section. Section is equal to HTML coding. What you write HTML coding in the programming languages, that is what section is all about. Inside a section, what do I have? I have a layout. So what is the purpose of layout? See, I can have more than one layout. A number of layouts I can have. See, let's say for example, you have 5 acres of land. Okay, let's say 1 acre of land. 1 acre land is there. So now you wanted to make it like a like you wanted to construct different houses. Okay, so you wanted to divide it into different plots. So for that, what are you going to draw? You are going to draw a layout, right? What is the layout importance here? What is it going to provide? It is going to provide you a proper structure of alignment of each plot. You want it in a proper structure, being aligned properly, right? So when you are designing user interface, you have a number of controls. So if you go to this Facebook registration form, you have in this alignment, in the first row, you have 2 columns. You have 2 columns. Column 1, column 2. In the second row, third row, you have only 1 column. And fourth row, you have how many columns? So controls are aligned into columns and rows format only. Okay, if you look at it, so this is the layout structure of a layout. So you wanted to properly align the controls. Okay, so that is one of the primary thing. If you want to align the controls, that can be done by using a layout. So now you need to get the controls from anywhere. If you go to data capture, you have text input control, date time control, currency, URL, phone number, password. And if you go to picker, you have radio button, checkbox, drop down, sliders, okay, multi select, auto complete. And if you go to actions button, link, menu, attachment. And if you go to data display, text, paragraph, image, chart, like this. See, how do you know about what are all the controls available here? You do not know about these things on the same day at the initial stages. As you start working on and you keep on practicing more about user interface going forward, automatically you'll come to know which control is there in which menu. Okay, that you will automatically get, so no need to much bother about it. If I want to get a control, I will be adding the control here, text input, like this I'll be adding. So one more control I want, so text area. So one more control I want, checkbox, and another control I want, radio button. Okay, like this I have added controls. Now if I double click on the layout, you can see here layout format stacked by default. There are different formats available. Inline grid double. How many columns I have got? 2 columns. Inline grid double. So you are getting 2 columns double. Suppose if I make inline grid triple, then I'll be getting the controls aligned in 3 columns. Column 1, column 2, column 3. Like this inline grid quadruple is there. Okay, like this you can go ahead and see a number of different types of controls whenever you have time. After your practice is done, you can play around with these options. There are so many different structures and formats of layout controls alignment. So layout, one of the primary purpose is to align the controls, and also you can give a label header. See here, personal information. So this is personal information, this part. And if I add more controls here in the second layout, layout 2, and this one I say education details. What is the advantage when you look at a form? This particular portion is for collecting personal information, this particular portion is for collecting education information, and this particular portion is collecting for previous employment details. Like this you can clearly make sense to the end users to give you a clear idea about which portion is about what type of information to collect. Everyone clear? So like this, in a user interface, if you want to design UI in Pega, you need to create a rule. What is that? Section. The rule type is called as section. Section is going to have a layout, and layout is going to have a control. Layout is going to help us to align the controls, one of the primary purpose, and also you can add header text. This is called as header text. Everyone clear? Makes sense? And the next level, see, we already discussed each control is going to be linked with a property. So that means before you create the section itself, you should be ready with properties. In PRPC already there are so many properties available. We'll be learning how to use OOTB later, but we are going to discuss about how to create properties by ourselves. So you choose a property here, first name, and now control is being mapped with a property. So properties we have to create by ourselves. How to create a property, I'll tell you. So the first thing when you have to design user interface, if you are being given with that requirement, first you need to create all the properties related to controls. What are the properties to be mapped? So first you should be ready with properties. You are ready with properties now. And the next level, once you are ready with properties, you need to create section. Add the controls into section, align it as per your business need, and add header text and all, and map each control to one of the property appropriately. Understand? That's what you have to do. Now coming to properties. Okay. So what is the property? I told you, right? In the other programming languages, what we call a variable. So when you come to Pega, the terminology changes. In Pega, the variable is called as property. Everyone clear? Makes sense? In PRBC, variable is referred as property. Okay. Now I will show you what is the property. So look at here. How to create property and all I will show you after some time. But look at here. Whenever you are creating a property, every property should have a name. Every property should be having a name. There should be a name. It is first name property, last name, gender, email ID, phone number. Like this, a property should have a name. Okay, you provide a name and create a property. Look at here. Create navigations you will be learning. So I'm giving first name. Okay, I already have first name, so I'm giving first name 1 simply, just to make the difference. Now first name when I give, while giving the first name, I have given a space in between, but here you can see identifier, it has removed the space and taken it. So the first part, this is called a label. From the label it will frame the property actual ID name. For everything that you create in Pega, there will be a label and there will be an identifier. Identifier is the one which system recognizes, and label is the one which is for a meaningful display purpose. Understand? So you see, always in the UI, if you display first name without spaces, it doesn't look good. So PRBC will display like this, but actual name is what? First name. Suppose you take a college as a system, students will be there. Students will have a name, students will have an ID. So how does the college as a system recognize a student? It can recognize each student uniquely by name or ID. That is by ID only. It's not by name. Name is just for display purpose, but ID is the actual one where you will get identified by the system. Okay, everyone clear? So now the ID and name, and you create remaining parameters. I'll tell you. Now here you see property type, property name I have given. What is the type of value that this property can hold? This modes and all I'll tell you later, not now. It will take time. But as of now, what is the easiest thing that you can understand is text. If I choose text, this property can hold any text value. Okay. And if I choose integer, means this property can hold a value which is integer. It should be like 15, 16, minus 20, minus 100 or plus 100, integer value. 10.5, it doesn't hold. Okay, that is a decimal value. So integer, double, decimal, date and time, only date. Like this, a property type is going to define what type of value, whether it is text value or integer value or decimal value or date value or date plus time value or a password format of just what you call masking value. Like that, the system should know about. While you are creating the property itself, you should tell the system what type of property that you want to create. Name is there, property type is there, and you can see here UI control. You're going to associate each property with control, right? When you take this property into UI, how this should be visible, like a text input or like a drop down or like a format of multi-select or like a format of paragraph, okay, or a password format or a phone number, like that. So according to what you have chosen here, it is going to make it visible like that. If I choose text input, this property when you take into UI, it will be visible like text input control. If you take it as a drop down, then when you take this property into UI, it is going to be visible like a drop down control. So how a property should be visible in the UI, appear in the UI, will be decided by this control. And table type I'll tell you later. So property is just like a variable in other programming languages. A property holds a value at runtime, and property will be associated with a name, property type, and a control how this should look like in the UI. And after you create properties, the next level you create section, map each control, add the controls into layout and map each control with the properties that you have created. Now you are ready with UI, right? Look at here. I will show you something. Look at here. See, I'm going to close the previous screens and all. So I made a transaction by executing a transaction model. This is the UI. So in the UI, I have first name, last name, age, gender, and all. Buttons are there. You see, cancel button, save button, submit button. I will open this user interface in the design. Don't bother about navigation. I know that I am not giving you a chance to look at the navigations. That you will be learning slowly. Okay, while practically creating, I'll give you time. Now this is the UI I created. The user interface which I have created, does it have any buttons like submit, save, cancel? Does it have online resources?
No.
There are no controls, or I mean like buttons and all in the UI. I designed UI without any buttons, but how come at runtime it has got the buttons? What does a button provides? A button provides an action to the UI. What action is being performed now? A submit action. On click of a button submit, form has been submitted. Form has been submitted means form data, everything has been taken into variables and thereafter it has been taken into database. Form has been submitted, completed, done. Okay, what happens to data, we'll think about it later. Okay, now the UI which you have created, you created without action, without any action buttons. There are no action buttons, but I want action also, right? If you simply create, suppose you create a Facebook form, imagine there is no sign up button here. What would you do? You cannot do anything. You enter the information, that's it. Sit back. You cannot do anything. So only providing this sign up button, they are providing an action to the UI. So allows you to take the data into next level and thereafter next levels further. So whenever you are designing UI, it is much essential that it should have action buttons. Suppose if you're working on any programming language of any HTML related coding, you have to add buttons by yourself. But in Pega, it is not required. You need to design only the UI without buttons. PRPC will automatically give the buttons to your screen. Okay, so the UI without action needs an action now. And buttons. How do you get the buttons? That is the next level, you need to create another rule. So far, we know that if you wanted to design UI, you need to create properties. That is the first step. Properties are ready, created. The next step is to create section. You created section. In the section, you added controls. You mapped the controls back to properties. Now properties are there in the controls mapped with, properties are there in the section mapped to the controls. And next level, you need to create a rule called flow action. What is the rule? Flow action. Flow action is a container of section. Here you will see all available action. Now you are going to create properties and add the properties into section. Section you are going to embed into flow action. Flow action. Flow means transaction. In a transaction, an action will be provided to the user interface, what you are embedding here. What are the three different default actions? Submit, save, cancel. These three actions Pega will provide by default. Okay, so after completion of creating section, as a next step, we need to create flow action. We need to create flow action. Flow, as of now, the definition of flow action for us is flow action is a container of section which holds, sorry, which adds an action to the UI. Flow action is a container of section which adds an action to the user interface. Default 3 actions are submit, save, cancel. We don't need to bother about what is save and cancel now. Submit is fair enough. Form will be submitted. Okay, flow action is ready. So with flow action, you got user interface with buttons. So the next level is I wanted to make a transaction. How do you represent a transaction model in BPM? So we discussed during the demo class. So using BPM, we are going to represent a transaction model. How do you create a transaction model in BPM? By using so during the demo, I told you, right, whatever we discussed during the demo, we see till and we discussed till last sessions of Pega. What is that? How a transaction model will be represented in BPM and Pega?
A flow chart.
Like a flow chart. Simply, you call it as a flow, or you may call it as a workflow. Anything is okay. You call it as a flow, or you call it as a workflow. Anything is okay. So that is what about you are going to create a flow. Next, that is the next step. So you create a flow like this. Where is it? Sorry, flow like this. See, anytime when you are creating a flow, you will be obviously giving some name to the flow. Some name, create. Automatically, PRPC is going to provide you a flow diagram with 3 different shapes. With 3 different shapes, basic flow shape. There are so many available. We'll be learning later. Okay. See, why do you have to create a flow? So already we discussed about BPM. So in a BPM, the transaction model will be designed like a multi-stepped model using a flow diagram. So as you have the flow diagram designed, the same way transaction will be proceeding step by step from beginning to ending. Now the flow diagram that has been created, the starting green color flow shape, this is called as start shape. This is called as start shape. And the red color small circle, this is called as end shape. A transaction gets initiated at the start shape. A transaction gets resolved or finished or completed, anything you say, at the end shape. Start shape and end shape. Okay. In between, there will be a number of steps. It can be n number, depends on your business transaction length. Suppose if I am taking, like I am trying to create a transaction flow for Amazon product delivery tracking. What are the different steps in what? Apart from start and end, what are the other steps? First one is preparing for dispatch. Preparing for dispatch is one step. At the step of preparing for dispatch, some people will take the product and they are going to take and label it, and they will be dispatching it to the respective address. And they complete the screen and say that we have dispatched it and tick mark and submit the form. Dispatch is done. What is the next step? Shipment. Okay, it is going to be shipped. Okay, shipping is done. What is the next step? It is going to be out for the delivery. Okay, it is going to be out for, once the out for the delivery is completed, next it is going to be delivered. Okay, success case, happy path. 4 steps are there in between start and end. We don't need to show them. Start step, end step, we don't need to show them in many cases. So a transaction will get initiated and it goes through the flow step by step, all the n number of steps till end shape in order to get resolved and completed or completed, you can say. Everyone clear? And here this is the start shape where the business transaction gets initiated, and this is end shape where business transaction gets completed, resolved. Okay, whatever you say. But in between, by default, we are getting one more flow shape. This is called as assignment shape. What do you call this? Assignment shape. So now you need to understand the meaning of the term. What is the meaning of, what is the term? Assignment. Just for your information, I'm typing here. Assignment. What is the meaning of term assignment in general? Assignment means it is a task. Assignment is one task. See, whole flow is equal to one transaction. Look at here. Whenever I use a term, this terminology, transaction is equal to flow or is equal to workflow is equal to work. Any of these four terms meaning same. Everyone clear? So entire work. So one loan account creation is entire work. Beginning to ending, you get the loan. One work has been done. But in between, you have so many assignments. Each assignment is equal to a task. Each assignment is equal to. So in a work, how many tasks can be there? N number of tasks. It depends on the length of your transaction. N number of tasks. Task by task has to be performed. See, there are different tasks. Task can be a human interactive task, or it may be a system done task. For example, if you are going to provide PIN number in the UI, ATM on the ATM machine, you are going to enter the PIN number of the card. That is UI task. You are entering as a human. You are doing a task using user interface. You are entering the PIN number. You entered PIN number and click on submit. System should perform a task now. What is the task that system should perform? Validate the PIN number what you have provided against the card number is matching or not. It is another task, but it is a system internal task. Tasks can be UI related task. Task can be internal task to system. Mostly user interface is required only when human interacting with the business application. As a human, how can I easily interact with, suppose if I display business logic, and is it possible for common people like us to interact with business logic and to provide the data? Suppose if I display you direct SQL queries by adding dash and all, if I ask you to enter the data to store in the backend, is it possible? It is not. So users, human beings can understand the user interface forms easily. So now you are going to interact with application transaction by using user interface. So in order to display user interface during the transaction processing is happening, we need a flow shape. What is the flow shape? Assignment. Everyone clear? So a task which is human related task, if you want to make it part of your transaction flow, then you need a flow shape, that is assignment shape. Make sense? Everyone clear so far? What is the purpose of assignment shape? One of the primary purposes is to display user interface to the business users. Means UI can be integrated into flow by using this flow shape. Where do you call the UI? So far I created properties, done, and then I created section, added controls and mapped to the properties, done, and the third level I created flow action, integrated section into flow action, completed. I got the action to the UI like submit, save, cancel. And the next level I am creating a flow with an assignment shape where I can embed the UI. So UI means here flow action with buttons, design of UI plus buttons. Now a flow action can be integrated into flow, can be added into flow or called into flow by using assignment shapes outward connector. What is that? In the assignment shape outward connector, we can call a flow action. Assignment shape outward connector, we can call a flow action. Everyone clear? So these are the very basic rules in order to design a transaction model and where you are going to have user interface in the transaction model. Business logic and all, we'll think about it later. Okay, everyone clear? So if you are being given with a requirement to create a UI form and make it part of the transaction model in Pega, these are the basic steps that one should be following. It is a template of basic steps. What is the first step that we have to do is create all the required properties. You create it, done. Next you create section, which is the HTML form, and add the properties into section. And then you create flow action and add section into flow action. And then you create a flow, and using assignment shape outward connector, you are going to call the flow action. The facility is provided there. Don't ask me why it is there in the outward connector, why not on the shape. On the assignment shape also you have a facility to call the flow action in different type of flow. That is a different type of flow we will be learning later. A specific reason to provide at the connector level we will be learning later. You need more knowledge on that. And now these are the rules: properties, section, flow action, flow. These are the 4 steps. After 4th step is done, there is a 5th step of creating a transaction object. I will be telling that later. Okay, so these 4 steps are there in the document. Now let me go through the document. So I already told you at the very beginning what is the model in which the data is going to flow in any web application or desktop application with UI business logic database. From UI, data will flow into business logic, from there to SQL queries to database. Done. And now you scroll down. So these are the basic rules. First one is property. Property is just like a variable in other programming languages which holds a value at runtime, and property will be associated with a name and a control and property type. Name, you are aware of what is a name, and control means how this should be visible in the UI. And what is the next one? Property type means what type of value. Can it hold a text value? Can it hold a date value? All this. See, while you are going through this document, remember here I have clearly written, ignore reading red color sentence for now. For the first time I'm going through it, red color sentence, whatever it is there, you will not be able to understand, but that's part of it. I'll tell you when to come back and read it. You can ignore that now. Remaining statements you can go through in order to better understand. And you can see this point. This can be created, means a property can be created under data model category. So similar statement you will be seeing in all rules. Property can be created under data model category, which means that this statement or this point is going to talk about navigation. This point is going to talk about what? Navigation. What navigation? How to create a property. Already I told you that Pega is all about form based programming model. Here and there you should be learning navigations, drag and drop and all, what to add where and all, how to select which one, where to select which one, you need to know. So this will tell you a property can be created under data model category. So you need to right click on the class. You want to create anything, go to create. What is the category in which I wanted to I can create a property provided by Pega is data model. So the second menu what you see, that is called rule category menu. That is called as rule category menu. Second menu is categories. These are all categories. Data model category, and then this is the menu of rule type. Under data model category, it is not only property. You can create so many other type of rules, but we are discussing about only property at this moment of time. So a property can be created under data model category. That statement is going to tell you about the navigation to create. Navigation to create. That is rightly create data model property. Done, completed. Similarly, you go to section. Section is a HTML rule. Section is a HTML rule to design user interface. In order to design UI, you need to create a rule called what? Section. Again, you ignore this reading. Okay, and now section can be created under user interface category. Now you can tell me the navigation, that is rightly create user interface category section. Similarly, look at here, flow action. As of now, flow action is a container of section which adds an action to the UI like submit, save, cancel buttons. And flow action can be created under process category. So create process category flow action. And similarly, flow. A flow represents your entire transaction model. Flow is heart of PRPC's transaction model. Flow is like a heart. That is where the transaction gets initiated by flow only. You don't have a flow, you cannot create transaction. Okay. Flow is heart of Pega rules process commander, where you using which you are going to initialize the business transaction processing. And here a flow contains 3 flow shapes by default. You can have n number like start shape, end shape, and assignment shape. Assignment shape purpose is to display user interface to the business users in order to collect the data from the business users. And start shape is the one where the transaction gets started, end shape is the one transaction gets initiated. A flow must have only one starting point. Starting point should be only one. There should not be more than one. Ending places can be multiple. See, there are n number of directions. One direction, if it goes, your card number, pin number matched, everything you got successfully. Another direction, second direction is pin number is not matching. That is a different way of ending the transaction. Like this, the different ways. So like this, the diagram is been given here, and you can go through it. Identify and create all the properties, create UI by section rule, add the properties into section, and then flow action, add the section into flow action, and then flow, use assignment shape outward connector to call the flow action into flow, and the last step I'll tell you later. Understand? Everyone clear? So these are the basic template of steps that you need to deal with while you're working with Pega rules process command, creating user interface and making it part of the transaction model. Everyone clear? Anyone has any doubts, any questions, online resources? Anyone? Are you clear?
Harsha,
Everyone?
we need
I will
to
respond on the chatting window. Yes, please.
hello. Harsha, we need to create flow actions after every sections and property.
See, we are going to see how to do all this manually by ourselves. There is a more better automation way. Without creating by yourself, automatically it gets created. We will be seeing that later. We need, as of now, we are going to learn in a way that we will create everything from the scratch. Okay. Next, any doubts? Are you clear? Respond on the charting window, everyone.
It's clear. It's clear.
Everyone should be responding on the charting window. Everyone. We have 20 resources. 20 resources should respond. Okay. Thank you. And now we are going to practically see how to create properties, how to create section, flow, action, flow, all this by ourselves in our application. Okay. So I'm going to take the screenshot of the documentation. I'm going to provide you that. Can same section or flow action reused in different flows? We can use in n number of transactions. Customer form is there in loan transaction. Customer form is there in insurance transaction. Customer form can be there in maybe other type of bank account creation transaction. So same form can be used in different flows. But while creating the form, you need to create at the appropriate places. If it has to be used like this, you need to create it in the higher level, like framework application level and all. Understand? I'm going to log into implementation application devimpl@hano.com rules. వీళ్ళందరికీ నోట్స్లు తెచ్చివ్వండి. మీరు ఆల్రెడీ మొన్న ఇచ్చారా? ఇచ్చారా మీకు? ఓకే, ఫైన్. Okay, so you need to write down the business requirements in a notebook or in a Word document. Whoever is connecting online, take your notebook or Word document and you write down this business requirement, and you need to tell me, guess. You need to guess and tell me what is the appropriate place to create all this. Write down. Create a UI form. Create a UI form to collect. Create a UI form to collect create a UI form to collect. Okay, you can put this heading working with properties, section, flow action, flow. All these rules we are going to create in this business requirement. So every time when you are writing a requirement related to a subject, you need to write the subject line also. If you open your notebook, all the subject requirement, subject requirement, subject requirement, like this, all the business requirement, by end of the sessions you should be having that. You can write down this subject line. Done, completed. Okay, Write down. Create a new user interface form to collect customers' basic information. Customers' basic information. Create a new user interface form to collect a customer's basic information. What are the basic information of a customer that you will be collecting? The name of the customer, maybe date of birth or age, gender, what is the country, state, city, zip code, like the basic details, phone number, email. You can add more if you want to add. You will be learning about creating properties, section, flow, action, flow, all of that in this requirement. Create a user interface form to collect customers' basic information. You can write down that properties is very easy. You don't need to even write. So creating customer form. This is what I am going to do. As a first step, what should I do? Creating properties. What are the properties that I have to create? First, I have to create a first name property. See, remember one thing we already discussed. Application will be there, inside application classes will be there, and classes inside respective rules will be there. Any functional components, attributes, everything. Properties are attributes. Okay, now if I am going to create property, definitely I should place the property inside a class and inside an application. As per your business requirement, this form is used to collect the customer information. Can I make use of this form for different implementations? So what is the appropriate place? I'll tell you only 2 layers. Tell me in these 2 layers is fair enough. Don't go for organization. That's a different case. Framework application context, framework work class, implementation application context, implementation work class. 2 context you have. One is inside framework application, inside framework class group. Second one is inside implementation application, inside implementation class group. These are the 2 you have a choice to choose. As per the business requirement, which one is better to go ahead with? Framework application, you have to place it inside framework application, inside framework class. So I logged into implementation application. From here itself, will I be able to access framework application context or not? Do I have access to that or not? Here 3 applications means you have access to framework also. So here I can choose. Okay, I'm not giving the screenshot of this. Just everyone look at here closely. As I wanted to create in framework related class group, this is framework. Every time I need to choose here. Suppose if I remove it and log off, login back, every time when you log into implementation application, implementation class group will be loaded. From here itself, if you want to access framework class group, you need to backspace like this and find out somewhere here and then choose it and you start creating. If I refresh this, okay, if I'm going to do a refresh here, refresh all, okay, it is not, it is keeping, but still every time you log in, it will be loading only implementation. If I want to see framework also permanently available here, the best I can do is I can add it as a shortcut. How to add this as a shortcut? Look at here. If you, for the first time when you backspace and select it, you have a pin icon, right? Click on pin, it will be added here in the shortcuts. Now if I log off and log in back also, implementation class group will be loaded. Okay, in the shortcuts you have framework class group. Now you can start creating from this shortcut. All of you will be able to add the shortcut, right? So property can be created under data model category. That will tell you the navigation about how to create a property. Right click on the class group. Here I am going to place my cursor. Right click with your mouse, create data model and then property. So take the screenshot of this. I'm giving you here. You will be able to do it, right? Property. Now it is going to show you a form where it is going to ask you, first thing is what is the label. From the label it will take the identifier. First name, first space name, that is the first name without spaces it is giving. Okay, and next, okay, next is, look at here, it is going to ask you about context, in which application you wanted to place this. From here I have two applications access. One is implementation application, second one is framework application. I thought of creating in the context of framework application, so I should be choosing the Same framework application context only. So I'll be selecting this framework application context here. So choose the context of application. So I will highlight and give you, look at here. This is framework application context. I am trying. Remaining parameters I am not touching. Remaining parameters, why I'm not touching? I thought of creating it inside framework class group that is coming automatically. Remaining two, I don't know. First of all, you don't know as of now, you'll be learning in future. So ignore the remaining two, keep it as it is, what is been defaulted there. I am creating this property in the context of framework application. I'm placing inside framework application, inside framework class group. Click on create and open. Okay. So click. You can save as to modified. That's a different thing. Hold on. Don't forget while doing. Follow the screenshots closely. You'll be learning everything. Now it is going to ask you. You want to change the type of the pass property. So you can click on change and choose something else. But by default, Pega has given property type as text and UI control as text input, table type, nothing. You don't know even table type, you'll be learning now itself. Everything what I have got is what I'm expecting. First name is a text value. I want a text input control in the UI. So I wanted to proceed with accept this defaults and save. So where is the save? This is the save. Click on save. Once you see a delete icon, which means that property is created. It's not that when you click on right click on create and click on create and open, it has not yet been created. The moment you click on save, it is been created. You see a delete icon means you can delete it if you want to delete. You are seeing a delete icon means it is created. Okay. So where is it created? In the framework application. Now right click on FW class group, or you can say work class, comma refresh. Let me show you by refreshing. If I close this, if I expand this, I can see data model. Even without refreshing, it is coming, it seems. Yeah, it is coming without refresh. Previously I used to refresh. You can see here, after refresh you expand and see that it will show the property. Done. So the one which you have created is coming here. Next I should be creating which one? Similarly, I'm going to create last name. Okay, as it is. Create data model property. Last name. Last name is also similar to first name. Next, gender. I'm going to create next one, gender. See, for gender, I want it to be a radio button, like gender male, female. Prefer not to say if you wanted to give. I want to create it as a radio button. So now for radio button, but it is text value only. Gender is equal to male. Text value. Gender is equal to female. Gender prefer not to say. All are text in text value, but input type is not text. Input type I want it to be radio button. So I should be choosing UI control to be radio button here. So now if you want to choose radio button, look at here. If you click the down arrow, you see so many controls, out of which finding radio button will be difficult. So don't bother about what is this PX. I'll tell you later. So you remove up to text input and then click the down arrow. You may type R. It will start highlighting the controls which are there, PXR, starting with R after PX. Radio buttons is the first one out of which. So that's what I'm looking for, so that it will be easy to identify and search for it. And you will understand now table type. I'm creating this gender property as a radio button, but how many radio buttons I should have and what is the value of each radio button? That I should know, right? For that you need to use table type local list as of now. Dynamically how to load we'll be learning later. And here the table values, male, here is the plus icon. You'll be able to do it right while practicing, female, and let's say prefer not to say. You can type anything, that's up to you, but I am typing this one and then save, that completed. So I created a gender property, male, female, prefer not to say. One more property I want to create. See, there are so many different navigations you can use to create property, out of which the basic navigation we have seen. Already this is a property form, right? Here you have actions, here you have a create option, This is also navigation to create a property. We will come across with another navigation of creating multiple properties at a time later. So now you need not to bother much about navigation. Gender after age. Age I want it to be integer value. Age I want it to be what? Integer value. Property type I have got as text and text input. See, look at here. I want to change the property type. Click on change and choose integer. I'm going to do that now. I'm going to choose integer. See, the moment I have chosen integer, you can see property type control also changed. Previously, what was the control? See, when it is text type, the control was text input, and when it is integer type, the control is changed to integer. Control integer also looks like a text box, but it accepts only integer values. Okay, so that's what by default Pega is automatically changing. If you don't want even this, you want to something else, then you remove it and click the down arrow in the drop down, you choose it. Completed. Age property created. I'm sorry. Age after, let's say country drop down you can create. I want country to be a drop down. Country name is text input only. Choose country as a drop down. I will add few countries here in the local list. What is the country? Let's say India, USA, UK. Like this you can have a number of countries being added. State. I'm going to create state property. Here you go, state. State also I want it to be drop down. We will be learning in future classes how to populate drop down values dynamically, and also one drop down values filtering based on another drop down. That is concept is called cascading drop down. Suppose if I select country India, I want to display only Indian states. Okay, like this we will be learning later, but as of now I'm entering some states. Very few. You can add any states of your wish. City. So this one also I won't take it as a drop down. Like this I have added very few cities. So you don't need to bother about this limitation of this local list, because we never use local list when there are more number of values. And when there are more number of values, we will dynamically load at runtime. Okay, local list is you have 3-4 values max. Always these values are constant. It is not changing frequently. If it is dynamically changing and you have huge length of list and all, if you have 1000 values to populate, you never use drop down. Instead, we will be using autocomplete. Autocomplete means if you enter two characters, automatically matching values will be populated. So as per the data, we will proceed with the design. But this is a basic way of learning. Okay, and city after zip code. So zip code I want it to be same as text input, because zip code may have a combination also. Save. Done. Completed. I created all the properties like first name, last name, age, gender, state, city, zip code, country. Okay, all of these properties I have created. If you want to see all those properties, you can see here. Expand this property, and you have all the properties created. Done. So now I have all the properties. What should I do next? So we have to create a section, add the controls into section, map each property to the controls of section, align the controls in the section, add a meaningful header to the layout in the section. All these things we have to do. Okay, we can do it today or tomorrow. We'll do it, we'll complete it up to flow and execution, and later you can I can explain you about the points behind this transaction execution and all. Okay, so let's create, that is the second one, right? Let's create section. Okay, a section can be created under which category? User interface category. Someone was trying to ask a question, is there any limit? Okay, I already told. Even for more number, when you have, it is always better to go ahead with dynamically loading. Okay, anything, there is no limit, but section name is customer details section. Customer details section. Create and open. So simply in the form I have added customer details section. Like this, I have right clicked, user interface section. Here's the form. I entered some name and then clicked on create and open. I got this form here. See, this is the latest version. The latest version, it uses a design template, but design template is not a full-fledged one. It's a basic level. I want a full-fledged design appearance. Then here you go, convert to full section editor. It is going to be give you an editing facility of having full features. So click on convert to full section editor. Make sense, everyone? I am clicking on that. I will be getting a submit. You submit it. No worries. Just I want a view like layout view. Okay. Now you need to add the controls into layout. See, first name control. What is that we thought of using? Text input. So you add text input here. So you go here. Just I will show you slowly for the first time. But remaining controls I'll add quickly. So text input. Take this control with your mouse. Just clicking on this will not be adding. If you simply click on it with your mouse, it won't get added. You have to pick the control with your mouse, drag that from here, and once it is highlighted inside, outside if you try to add, nothing will come. Inside the layout, it will get highlighted in the saffron color, release it. It's an empty control that is been added. I want one more control for the last name. Again, what should I do? Drag. Instead of that, I can right click on it, copy, and right click on it, paste. It has added one more control. Like HTML code, you are copying and you are pasting HTML code. First name, last name after age. Age I want it to be like a text input only, but integer value. Here, get this one. It looks like a text input. It accepts only integer value. Age, gender. Gender I want it to be radio buttons. After gender, state. State I want country. Country I want it to be drop down. So you may just find it little difficult, but you drag and drop it somehow. Country after state, city, zip code. State is also same drop down. City is also same drop down, right? I am going to copy this, paste here, and then paste here. Understand? You got how many drop downs? After this, I want one text input for zip code. I can copy this text input. I can scroll down. I can paste here, right? So I got a text. You know how to add it. Now scroll up. Double click on layout. Double click on layout. If you scroll up here, you can see this is the layout. You need to double click on the layout. Double click. Here you can see alignment, layout format. I want it to be aligned in a inline grid double manner. Inline grid double. And I want it display header and title. I'm highlighting that. And title, what is the title? Please fill your basic information here. You can write anything of something meaningful. That's up to you. Okay, submit. Look at here, submitting. This is how the alignment is now. The alignment is like, for alignment I have done. See, I added controls. I have given header text. I have aligned the controls, but controls I did not map so far to the properties. I need to map each control to the property. So map each control to the properties. Property. Okay. So now double click on control. You can see here. This is the control, right? First one. I'm going to double click on this. In the screenshot, you will see a pop-up and background one is highlighted. Means I have double clicked on the specific control what is being highlighted. And now I need to select a property. First name. I don't need to remember the name of the property and type it. No need to type it. You click the down arrow on your keyboard. It will show you all the properties. I will be selecting first name property here. Submit. Now this control is aligned with a property. I mean, like, is being mapped to a property called first name. Repeat the same for all other controls. Repeat the same for all other controls. So I don't need to give the screenshot to deal with all other controls, right? So, but still I'll be giving first name, last name, age, gender. See, for every property when you select, PRPC will automatically add a dot before the name of the property. Before the name of the property, it will add a dot. You can see here. It is adding a dot. Country. After that, state. You don't need to manually type anything. Remember, please don't make mistakes like typing manually. City. And what is the next one? Save. Done. So till you click on save, it is not yet been created. Now you see a delete button, which means it is created. Where you can see here, if you refresh this, data model, user interface, user interface section. This is the section I created, right? This is the section. I can close it. Next, what do I wanted to create? Third one, creating flow action. I will take more 5 minutes. Please hold on, because this is very simple. Flow action is very simple embedding. Controls and all, it will take time, but flow action is process category flow action, because I want you to just finish up this and run and see. Okay, this is customer details FA. Customer details. That's a meaningful name I'm giving. The word FA at the end, 2 characters. Meaningfully, it says flow action, naming convention. It's optional. You don't need to be FA and all. It's up to you. But section is that here. If you click the down arrow, you should see that. Don't manually type anything, please. You always choose it from the drop downs so that there won't be any mistakes at all. Flow action is done. Now do what? Create flow. So everyone, are you following? It's clear, right? Every one of you. Navigation, you can see clearly in the screenshot. If you blindly follow the screenshot, you should be getting it. Flow can be created under which category? Online resources. Following or not? Process category and then flow. Name of the flow is begin insurance. So that's what I'm going to do. Begin insurance by initiating the transaction. Okay, create and open. By default, you will be getting a flow with start shape, end shape, assignment shape. Where do we call a flow action? A flow action can be called on assignment shapes outward connector. So now double click on assignment shapes outward connector. I'm going to do double click on the assignment shape outward connector. I double clicked on it, and here you see find an option of flow action. By default, flow action name is filled with begin insurance name of the flow. Remove it, click the down arrow. You should see all available flow actions. See, if I select a flow action here like this and I submit, suppose, see, flow action is called, but it is not displaying what is being called here. If you want to see the display a label. So what you can do is you can copy this here just for your information and you paste it here. So that if you submit now, what will happen is it will show you label on the connector, so that it makes sense that you have called a flow action. Now fifth step, creating work object. I did not tell anything about this, but you blindly follow with me, okay, while going through this. Go to process tab of the flow. So we are currently at diagram tab. So now we need to go to process tab and then select the option creates a new work object. I'm going to select that, but I did not tell you the reason why we have to select it, but you follow me for today. Tomorrow at the very beginning we start discussing about this. Then scroll down at the work parties, remove default and choose PY case management default. This option will be available. What is a work party and all you don't need, but why we are changing this you will be learning tomorrow. So I'm removing this work party and click the down arrow. You will see PY case management default, which you will be learning about this tomorrow, because today time is not sufficient. Save, done, your flow is created. So everything including fifth step we have done, but I know that you did not know about what is this option and why we have chosen the PY case management default in work parties. That you will be learning tomorrow. Now click on action menu and choose run to initialize business transaction. So overall you have just learned about what are the basic rules to create to design UI and what are the navigations to do that. You did not learn much technical today in this overall session. Okay, I'm going to choose run. Once you choose run, it is going to initiate the transaction ID and all I'll tell you later. And here you can just enter information. Submit. That's it. You don't need to make any other observation other than submitting. After submitting, what happens? Where does this data get stored? And when you run the flow, what is happening exactly? And what is the option you have selected creates in your update? And why we have chosen PY case management default there? All this will be answered tomorrow in the session. Okay, for today, you have just been given with information about basic rules that you need to remember while creating the UI, and how to create those rules and how to embed one in another. All navigations and information you came to know about today. Tomorrow you are going to know about the technicals behind this. Okay, everyone clear? Makes sense? Online resources. If you follow closely the documentation process, you will be able to do it. Just hold on, help me with sharing you the documents. $592, right? Why we have only 22? I have added few more people, right? This time I got more. February 14, 592. I will be sharing all the documents probably tomorrow, day after tomorrow. This document, and what else? Practical document. Yes. That's it. And you'll be getting, so you, if you find anything like this, it should be there in your Google Drive. You need to go to your Google Drive, and there you have shared with me, and you will be finding that in your Google Drive. Okay. And any questions, any doubts about this, we can discuss tomorrow at the very beginning. Okay. So you can wind up for today. We'll continue tomorrow. Please connect to the sessions on time.